So in order to make the appropriate decision, whatever the data which is collected by the researcher, so it has to be properly collected, analyzed, and interpretation of data is very essential. In order to know the information, so since under census method, they are going to collect the information from a large group of people, then only census method can produce accurate results. So the sample chosen for the investigation must represent the relevant universe or population. Hello everyone, I am Harshita, lecturer, Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. My dear students, today we are in the first session of Unit 4 of the subject Business Research Method, and this is for 5th Sem BCom students of Mysuru University. Okay, so today we are going to discuss Unit 4 under this particular subject, that is Sampling and Hypothesis Testing. So till now we have discussed how the researcher or how the interviewer is going to collect the information in order to solve the research problem. That is, what are the various sources, so what are the various methods in order to collect the information. So everything we have discussed in a previous session. So in today's session, we are going to continue with this unit, that is your 4th unit, and today we are in the first session. So let us see what is this sampling and hypothesis. First, we shall discuss about sampling. Before that, we shall see few introduction about sampling. Now, introduction about sampling. Now, what do you mean by sampling? So, you know the researcher wants to collect the information in order to solve a particular problem, that is business problem. Now, how he is going to collect the information, that we have discussed in a previous chapter, that is previous unit, correct? So, in this unit, you are going to learn that is from whom the information has to be collected. So, we know what are the ways to collect the information. It may be primary sources or it may be secondary sources, correct? But here in this unit, from whom we are going to collect the information. Who will be the respondents? Now, who are the respondents? From whom the researcher will collect the information, they are called as respondents. So, whether the researcher has to go for collecting the information from a large population or from a small group of people, that we are going to learn from this particular unit. Now, going through the introduction here, in order to make appropriate decisions in marketing research activities. So, it's not only confined to marketing research, any research activities. So, in order to make the appropriate decision, what we need? We need sufficient information relating to that particular problem. So, in order to make the appropriate decision, whatever the data which is collected by the researcher, so it has to be properly collected, analyzed, and interpretation of data is very essential. To accomplish the purpose of research, the researcher engaged in gathering the necessary data from different sources. Now, what we are going to do? In order to collect the data, we have learned that the researcher will go for various sources of collecting the data. Under that, we have learned primary method as well as secondary method. In primary method and in secondary method, there are a lot of sources to collect the data. So, it depends upon the researcher whether he has to go for primary data collection or secondary data collection. Often, the secondary data sources are not available properly. So, I have already told you the main intention of going for primary data is that the researcher might have chosen a topic, but on that particular problem or on that particular topic, so there may be or there may not be availability of exact information in the secondary sources. Due to that limitation, what the researcher will do, in order to get the exact solution for a particular problem, what he has selected, he goes for primary data collection. Of course, few information relating to that topic may be available through secondary sources, but we cannot get the exact information to that particular topic which is selected by the researcher. In that situation, he goes for primary data collection. So, often the secondary data sources are not available properly, then primary data sources are considered imperative and the necessary information are collected by the researcher through this method. So this I have already told you. The main intention is that we have to get the exact information for a particular problem. Suppose we don't get the exact information, in that cases, so in secondary sources, of course we'll get the information, but we'll not get the exact information. So relating to that particular topic, we might get the information, but we don't get the exact information. In such cases, what the researcher will do? He will go for primary data collection. Primary data can be obtained by either census method or sampling method. Now, here first we are going to learn about census method. Next, we are going to learn about sampling method. That is, why the researcher have selected to collect the data from the primary sources. Now, he has to see through that, through primary method, whether the data has to be collected through census method or sampling method. So, in order to collect the data, there are two methods under primary sources. One would be the census method, other one is sampling method. Now, let us see what is this census method and sampling method in today's session. Now, coming to the census method. Now, you might have heard the word, that is census. Now, what do you mean by census? The main thing what comes to your mind is population, correct? The whole population. Now, normally census is conducted, that is in order to know the population, correct? So, it is not only confined to only the population. So, there are number of other activities where census method can be applied. Okay. So, it is normally considered to the number of individuals, that is in terms of population. So, census is conducted in order to know the number of individuals. So, if we hear the word population, immediately we will come to know the number of individuals or number of the persons who are there in the country. But this census method is not only confined to the individual, many other activities can also be conducted through census method. Now, what is this census method? In the census method, while collecting the data, each unit of the universe or population is considered. Now, if you see the diagram here, suppose we shall take that this is the whole population of our country. So, this is just an imagination. So, there are number of individuals or number of people in the country, correct? So, the whole individual or the whole population is considered in this type of research method. Now, here each and every individual's opinion or each and every individual's information will be collected under census method. That is, whole population is taken as respondents. Okay. So, here the whole population is considered and the researcher will collect the information from the whole population individually. That is known as what? Census method. For example, while collecting the information about the behavior of the consumers in Mysuru district, every citizen living throughout the Mysuru district is conducted and his or her preference about the object is collected. This is known as census method. Now, if we want to collect the data from the whole country, then whole country will be the population or the whole country's individual will be the respondent. Suppose in this example here what they are going to do, they are going to collect the information only from Mysuru. Okay. So, only from Mysuru, then all the individuals of Mysuru will become the population or will become the respondent. Suppose if they want to collect the information from Bangalore, then whole Bangalore's population will become the respondent. In the same way, individually if they want to collect the information from individual states, for example, if they want to collect the information from Kerala, now whole Kerala's population will become the respondents for research. So, this is known as what? Census method, where they are going to consider whole population. Now, suppose it is a district, then whole population of that particular district will be the respondent. Suppose if they want to collect the information from the whole state, then whole state's population will become the respondent for the researcher. Because each individual's response is obtained by enumerators or the researcher by contacting them personally. Now, who are the enumerators? Now, I have told you if they are going to select a particular state, then the whole population of that particular state will be the respondents. Now, since the population is very huge, so whether researcher alone can collect the information because the time duration may be short, in that situation, he himself cannot collect the information from the whole population. Then what happens? He will appoint some skilled person. So, he will appoint some skilled person in order to collect the information, who are known as what? Enumerators. Now, because each individual's response or opinion has to be collected by the researcher, so he himself can collect the information, or he will appoint the enumerators, which means what? Skilled persons in order to collect the information, so that each individual's response can be obtained. Now, let us see what are the merits of census method. So, what you have to remember under census method, here the researcher is going to collect the information from the whole population individually. That is, he himself can contact the respondent and collect the information, or he can appoint some other enumerators or skilled persons in order to collect the information. Now, let us see what are the merits of census method. If you know the meaning of census method, you can go on writing the merits here. So, the first one is reliable and accurate. So, we are going to discuss each and every point individually. Now, time being, you know this merit here, reliable and accurate. And the next one is less biased. Next, third one is exhaustive information. Fourth one is studying diverse features. Fifth one is study of complex investigation, and the next one is indirect investigation. So, these are the few merits of census method. Now, let us see one by one. So, the first merit is that it is reliable and accurate. Now, before going through the explanation, I'll tell you why the results which is obtained by census method is more reliable and accurate. So, because we are going to collect the information from the huge population, so we'll get huge number of opinion, so that it will be easy for the respondent to draw a meaningful conclusion, because we are going to contact each and every respondent from the huge population. Results obtained from census method are accurate and fully reliable because each and every unit of the population or universe is studied. Now, suppose if they are going to study the behavior of the respondents in Mysuru district, so they are going to contact each and every individual personally and they are going to collect the information, so that the researcher will get the exact information instead of going for any other sources, that is instead of going for secondary data or any other sources. The information collected through census method will be accurate because they are going to individually contact them and collect the information. Next one is less biased. So, there is no discrimination. So, there is no opposition in respect of respondents as well as in respect of researcher. Results depending on the census method are less biased. In the sense, there may be a less chances of opposition of the results which is collected by the researcher. So, here if they are going to collect the information from a particular state, okay, so here the chances of biased or the opposition will be very less because in that particular state the researcher have contacted and collected the information individually. So, there may be a chances of less opposition. This is because the researcher has no discretion regarding the selection of sample units. So, we'll learn about sample units later. So, sample means what? Instead of going for whole population, so randomly they are going to select a group of people. So, this group of people will represent the whole population. Now, this is a whole population, correct? Now, what the researcher will do? Researcher will select only this much. Okay, so this is known as what? Sample, and the whole population is called as census, and this part what the researcher have selected to collect the information from the whole population. So that is termed as what? Sample. Now here the individual will represent the whole population. Now whatever the information which is given by this sample units, so it will represent the whole population. So this is about what? Sample units. So here there may be a chances of, or there may be a less chances of opposition under census method, because they are not going to collect the information from a group of people, that is sample units. Now why there will be opposition? Suppose now instead of, or here the sample is representing the whole population, correct? Now whatever the information which is given by the sample, so given by the sample may not be correct also, because when compared to the whole population we will get the different opinions, correct, or different information can be gathered. But who represent that whole population might give the wrong information also. So we can't judge by taking a group of people. So a group of people cannot be represented the whole population. So in that cases, in this census method there is less chances of bias. Next one is exhaustive information. Now what is exhaustive information? I have told you, since they are going to collect the information from a huge population, what happens? They will get different opinion as well as different type of information will be collected, so that the information will be elaborative in nature. So or exhaustive in nature, where lot of information can be collected. So information collected through the census method is quite exhaustive and therefore it is meaningful. It is meaningful also because we will get lot of opinion from the respondents. It includes all units of the universe. Each unit of the universe is examined for research purpose. Now they are going to collect the information from the large universe. At the same time, what happens here? They will get huge number of opinions. So they are individually going to examine each and every respondent from that huge population. For example, population census in India provides elaborate information relating to the number of people. So I have told you, main thing that come to our mind is the number of people or number of individual, correct? So in different parts of the country, their demographic features such as age, sex, education, occupation, income, etc. So normally census will be conducted for every 10 years, correct? So what happens here? When they conduct the census, that is, they will come to know what is the number of persons or what is the number of individuals who are presented in India, what is their age, what is their sex, what is their education, what would be the occupation, what is their demographic features, everything they will come to know, because they are going to individually contact each and every individual. Next one is studying diverse features. So there are a lot of information can be collected. So it's not only confined to a group of people. So lot of information can be collected here. So by applying census method, the researcher can study diverse features of the universe or population. So diverse in the sense what? Different features or elaborate features can be studied by the researcher. And the next advantage is that study of complex investigation. So here the investigation takes place in a large area. So it is complex investigation. When the units in the universe are complex in nature and it is necessary to study each unit for research purpose. So in order to know the information, so since under census method they are going to collect the information from a large group of people, then only census method can produce accurate results. So if they are going to conduct the census method, then each and every individual should be given attention and collect the information so that the research work will be accurate. Because census method consider the participation of each unit of the universe. Now what do I mean by each unit here? In the sense each individual in that particular population. Next one is indirect investigation. So this is also one of the benefit of census method. The census method is a good method to investigation while studying the features. So it is a good method of investigation while studying the features in case of unemployment, poverty, corruption, etc. So these are the main problems which the people of India are facing. So in order to know that, if they go for research activity of the whole population, they will come to know the exact problem relating to unemployment, poverty, corruption or any other such type of activities. So these are the few merits of census method. Now coming to the demerits. So demerits of census method are explained below. So let us see what are the demerits here. So the first one is it is a costly method. Let us see why it is costly. Next one is more enumerators. So I have already told about enumerators in the beginning itself. So here the researcher can't go individually and collect the information because the population is too huge. In that situation, he has to appoint some other person, some skilled person to collect the information, who is called as enumerators. Next one is not suitable if the universe is large. So if they are going to collect the information from a particular district or a particular state, so state also it is quite expensive, okay, so quite difficult to collect the information. But if they take the whole country, then what happens? The population is too huge. In that situation, research activity needs more time at the same time, so it requires or it is very difficult. Next one is requires more time. Of course, we know if the population is too large, it requires more time. So these are the few demerits here. Let us see one by one. Costly method. So we know it is very costly because the population is too huge. At the same time, it requires huge amount of time as well as money to collect the information because the researcher has to go individually and collect the information. At the same time, if he appoints enumerators or a skilled person to collect the information, for him also the researcher have to pay money. So it is costly method. So census method is much costlier and is therefore generally not considered for ordinary investigation purpose. So here ordinary investigation cannot hold good under census method because it requires huge amount of money. Only the government or some organization which can afford much cost. So normally this type of census method will be conducted by the government or some other organization which has huge amount of money. They only can go for this census method, can use this method, and that too for specific purpose only. So if there is an exact purpose, then only they can go. Even for the government or any other organization who has sufficient amount of money, for them itself it is difficult to go for census method. So this census method is not suitable for all type of research activity because it requires huge amount of money. Next one is more enumerators. So census method requires lot of enumerators or investigators. So I have already told you here the population is very huge and the researcher cannot collect the information by himself. So what happens? He will appoint some enumerators or investigators or skilled persons in order to collect the information. So census method requires lot of enumerators or investigators to complete the study. Training enumerators. Now training is also very costly for them because we have to train the enumerators and then send them for data collection. So training enumerators and their maintenance become a costly affair. Training them and maintaining them is also very costly. Next one is not suitable if the universe is large. Of course, if the universe is too large. Now I have told you this census method will be done only by the government of India or government organization or any other organization which has sufficient amount of money or who can afford money. So in that situation, so here if the universe is too large, then what happens? It is very difficult. Suppose I have told you if it is specified for a particular district, then somehow they can collect the information. If it is specified for a state also, it is difficult for the researcher because in the state also the population is too huge. In that situation, it is not suitable for the universe where it is too large. So, census method is not suitable for obtaining information if the population or universe meant for the study is too large in number. So, suppose they want to collect the information from 5 states. It is very difficult for them because the population is too large. Next one is requires more time. Of course, under this type of method it requires more time. So, in order to collect the information, more time is required. Since a large volume of units, because they want to meet each and every individual in that population, so which is called as units, have to be studied. So, each and every individual have to be studied under census method. So, more time is required for data collection, analysis and results interpretation. It's not that just collecting the data from the huge population. So, after collecting we have to analyze the data, we have to interpret the data. So, it is a very difficult task and which requires huge time. Now, coming to the next method, that is sampling method. So, we have already learnt about census method. I have told you in census method they are going to consider the respondent from the whole population, and we have learnt what are the merits and what are the demerits of census method. Now, coming to the sampling method. So, let us see what is this sampling is all about. So, if you see the picture here, you can clearly understand. So, now this is a whole population. And I have already told you they are going to consider only from this much area. So, that is known as what? Sampling. So, this sampling or this sample will represent the whole population. So, this method is called as what? Sampling method. So, by keeping the information what is given by the sample here, that is sample units. So, based on that they are going to draw the conclusion of that whole population. So, keeping this sample as a respondent, they are going to judge the information about the whole population. That is known as what? Sampling method. So, in this method, each unit or part of the population or universe are not studied. So, remember this, whereas in census method, they are going to study the individual person or individual unit. But this will not happen in case of sampling method. In the whole population, each and every individual is not studied individually, but only a small fraction representing the features of the universe or population is selected and studied for the research purpose. So, the best example we can give by this picture itself. Here, they are not going to study the whole population. Now, they are going to study a part of the population. So, this part or the opinion or the information which is given by this part will represent the whole population. So, whatever the results which is got by that particular sample, so that will represent the whole population. For example, if the researcher wants to study the consumption pattern of people in the Bengaluru city, it becomes costly. So, what they are going to do? So, if they are going to take Bangalore city as a population, if they are going to conduct research on Bangalore city, so it is very difficult for them to contact each and every individual in the Bangalore. So, what they will do? They will take randomly they will select a group of people from Bangalore and they will make a study on them and they will collect the information. So, this information which is collected from that small group of people will represent the whole Bangalore city. So, for example, if the researcher wants to study about the consumption pattern of Bangalore city, it becomes costly as well as time consuming process to meet each individual in Bangalore city. For this purpose of his study, the researcher classifies the Bangalore city into convenient divisions and select the people from each division who can represent their respective division in all cases or in all areas. Now, what they are going to do? Now, suppose we shall take this picture itself. Now, this is a Bangalore city. Now, what the researcher will do? Researcher can't go individually and collect the information from each and every individual. So, he will make the divisions. So, he will make the divisions and what he'll do, he will take some people from this division, he'll take some people from this division, he'll take some people from the next division and some from this division. That is, from all the divisions he will take few members and he will create a sample. So he will put together all the members here and he will create a sample. Now this is known as what? Sampling. Okay, so from all the divisions, all the individuals are gathered together, that is, few selected individuals are gathered together, which represents the whole Bangalore city. From the selected people, that is, from the selected people of all the divisions, who can be called as sample units. So this individual persons who are selected. Now this individual person is called as what? Sample units. Okay, so sample units, data is collected and analyzed appropriately to obtain the virtual results. So from that particular sample units, they are going to collect the information, they are going to analyze and interpret the result. So this is known as what? Sampling. So sampling method is not only popular in marketing research but also in everyday life. Suppose why they have given it is everyday life. Suppose if the researcher or if you go to a particular shop and you want to buy 50 kgs of rice. Okay, so if you want to buy 50 kgs of rice, what you'll do, whether you will individually see each and every grain of rice there? No, you'll take in a hand, that is in your hand, and you will check the quality of the rice. So if the quality is good, then you will buy the whole 50 kg of rice. So this is known as what? Sampling. Okay. In the same way, suppose you go to a doctor and you want to check your blood, that is blood checkup. Now whether the doctor will check the whole body's blood? No, correct? So he will take a small sample and based on that your result will be given. In the same way, here also I have told about rice. So you are not going to check each and every grain of the rice in that 50 kg bag. So what you'll do, you'll take in your hand, you'll check that rice. If the quality is good, you'll buy the whole 50 kg. Correct? So this is a best example for sampling. So they have told you that the sampling is not only confined to business research or marketing research, so it is also applied for everyday life. Now let us see what are the essentials of sampling. The essential features of sampling are given below. So the first one is representativeness. Now before going through the explanation, just in one sentence I'll explain. Representativeness means what? Here that small population, that is small sample, is going to represent the whole population. Correct? So here the small unit or the small sample units what the researcher selects. So this sample units is going to represent the whole population. That is representativeness. Next is adequacy. So let us see why it is adequate. Next, randomness. Randomly they are going to select the sample. Then homogeneity. Here homogeneity means what? How to select the sample. So I have given an example of selecting the respondents from Bangalore. So what they have done? They are going to divide the whole population and they are going to take the individuals separately from each division. Now suppose if the researcher wants to collect the information from the students, then they can't include all the population, that is youngsters, children's or any adults, like that they can't mix up. So they have to go for only students. Among the students they have to collect a sample, correct? In the same way, parents of the students. So they can't collect the information which has to be collected from the parent from the students, correct? So here the sample will be parent. Among the parent they are going to collect few of the sample or few of the population which is called as sample, correct? So here homogeneity in the sense what? If they are going to collect the sample, so there should be some homogeneity, there should be some similarity. Suppose I have given the example of students. So if they want to collect the information from students, then the population should be student only, and from that population the researcher have to collect the sample. Okay. So in the same way, the researcher wants to collect the information from teachers, then the population will be teachers. From that whole population of teachers, few teachers will be selected as sample. So there should be some homogeneity. Now let us see about first one, representativeness. So the sample chosen for the investigation must represent the relevant universe or population. So this I have already told you, the whole population can be represented through that small sample. So there should be, or the sample should be able to represent the whole population. That means it must represent all the characteristics of the population. So here all the characteristics of the whole population should be represented by that small sample. If it does not represent the population exhaustively, then research result will become inappropriate. So if it does not hold the characteristics of the whole population. Now I had given an example of Bangalore itself. So if there are whole population and they have made divisions. So from each divisions they are going to collect the information or collect the sample, correct? So this is mainly done because the whole population has to be equally spread and all the characteristics has to be combined in that particular sample. So representative or sample should be in such a way that it should represent the whole population. Next one is adequacy. The sample size should be adequate enough to provide accurate results. Now, the researcher has to be very careful while selecting the sample. He has to make sure that if the sample is been selected, from them whether the accurate results or adequate results or the sufficient results can be obtained or not. If they can't provide sufficient results, then the results of research will be inaccurate. So although it is difficult to determine the sample size, it can be found with help of statistical technique. So with the help of statistical technique, the researcher has to select the sample size and he has to make sure that that sample what the researcher has selected has to give adequate information or sufficient information as well as accurate information. Next one is randomness. The sample should be selected in a random manner. So this I have already told you, we can't take a group of population from a same part of the whole population. So we can't select the sample from a similar or a same part of the whole population. Randomly we have to choose the sample. This means that while selecting the sample, no discrimination. So no discrimination has to be made. He should provide equal chance of selection of each unit of the population or universe. If the sample is selected randomly, only then the investigator is able to get the accurate results. So this I have already told you, it's not just that the researcher is going to select the sample from a particular part of the population. Randomly from the whole population he has to collect the sample. Next one is homogeneity. So this I have already explained you. So samples drawn from the population or universe must have similarity in all respects. Suppose if they are going to collect the information from the parents, then the population should be parents and the sample has to be collected from that population of parents only. So it cannot be, or here students cannot be mixed in the sample. So there should be some similarities. For example, suppose the researcher chooses 5,000 people from Bangalore city to study their consumption habits. So this sample should not include people who visit Bangalore for tour or traveling purpose. Now in this example, suppose the researcher wants to collect the information from the respondents of Bangalore. Now, while collecting while deciding the sample, here the researcher have to be very careful whether they are the actual residents of Bangalore city or not, or whether they have come for the tour to Bangalore. That is, here he has to be very careful. So, the residents of Bangalore only can be selected as a sample, not the person who have come to visit Bangalore and staying for 2 to 3 days there or for 1 year there. So they cannot be considered as a sample. So these are the few essentials of sampling. So in my next session, I am going to continue with sample because this unit is relating to sampling as well as hypothesis. Correct? So why I have discussed about census? Because in order to differentiate census from sampling. Hope you are clear with this. Now whole population is called as census. A part of the population is called as sample. Okay. So in my next session, I am going to discuss about the next topic, that is sample size. Let us see what is the sample size. Factors determining sample size. So what are the various factors that determines the sample size? Merits of sampling method, demerits of sampling method. So these are the few topics what I am going to discuss in your next session, that is in your second session. So my dear students, hope you have understood the session clearly. See you all in my next session with a new topic. Till then, take care. Thank you.